Hello, I am your everyday average Jonathan. I am an ordinary guy with ordinary tools making extraordinary things. I am a self-taught craftsman, an amateur blacksmith, a novice woodworker. Each week I take you on a new project with me. I show you my process, I show you my perspective. I don't edit out any of my mistakes. I don't edit out any of my aha moments. The items that I make tend to be fantastical in nature, whimsical perhaps, echoing times of a forgotten yore. Items like weapons, novelties, implements, structures even that I use on my ranch here in Colorado. This week I will be making something called Intarsia, which is essentially a wooden puzzle, a drawing, but in the form of a wooden puzzle. I've done one before in the past and I thought it came out really well. This project is going to be a Christmas present for my brother. It's going to be a reflection of he and my two daughters who love him dearly. He loves them dearly. He's an amazing uncle and they can't stop playing with him, putting their arms around him, roughhousing with him. So this will reflect a little bit of their relationship to him and his to them. I look forward to having you along with me for this build. Let's get to the shop and get started. A friend of mine gave me this sculpture, this art piece for my birthday last year, and I just love it. It's one of the nicest gifts I've gotten. It looks just like my two daughters, so I decided to turn it into an image that I could then transfer onto a piece of wood. So I took a photo of it, made it black and white, darkened it, and printed it out, and away we go. The wood that I'm going to use for this is ironwood, holly, and then this beautiful purple tiger maple. That's the real color of the wood itself, and then the ironwood is also an extremely dense, very heavy wood, as is the tiger maple. The holly is very clean, very light, and that's the white wood that you see me using right now. I'm always excited to get to use my squirrel saw. I don't get to use it enough, but each time I pull it out, I know something neat is afoot. And here we have painter's tape. No one likes painter's tape. It's the bane of my existence. The person who invented painter's tape, I'm sure, had a miserable life and died an even worse death. Be that as it may, one of the big mistakes that I made on this project was I need to transfer the picture that I'm going to be cutting out onto the wood with some sort of adhesive. It needs to be glued to the wood so that each time I cut a smaller and smaller shape, the paper doesn't come flapping up off of the piece of wood and the drawing that I'm trying to follow. I'm 100% sure that anybody who has ever done Intarsia would have been able to tell me that right off the bat, and in watching this they're going to be laughing their butts off, as would I. This was a big mistake. It worked out in the end, but goodness, it could have been so much easier and so much better. Intarsia is really cool. It's essentially just creating a wood puzzle from a drawing. You're following all of the gradients in the picture, the large, bold color swatches that juxtapose each other, but at the same time, you're trying to find the smaller ones too and give them a slightly different hue and follow each contour of those different color changes and shape changes and make it into a puzzle. It's actually really fun to do. I'm not certain how other people doing Intarsia do this, if they actually do what I'm about to say at all, but I was going to recess these puzzle pieces, this full Intarsia picture, slightly into this piece of wood, not by very much, about 1/8 of an inch. So I drew the outline, and then I'm going to go ahead and route out the following. It just keeps the puzzle all together in one piece. I will use glue at the end, but it also gives it kind of a nice framing. The piece of wood that I used for the base actually has a large bow to it. I think it's an old shelf that I had laying around. It's pine. It's very weathered, but I'm gonna clean it up. It looks pretty cool. The bow to it actually kind of holds the puzzle pieces in, so I like it. And then I'm gonna cut a little bit of an outline across, which you'll see here in a minute. I decided to give my brother the shirt portion, his torso portion. I decided to give him a button-up shirt. So here I'm creating the little buttonholes. I'll put a little stain in there. I'm going to use the magic marker just to get that going. But then it looks like he's got a little bit of a shirt. I wanted the wood backing to have a form that he could then hang on the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and create a recessed hole, a large hole into this that he can then hang anywhere he wants to. And it's often said that you should probably clamp your work down, but I don't typically follow advice, and as a result, I knocked my camera over. I think this is the second time that happened too, so you'll see here that I actually did use a clamp. I'm going to use a roundover bit on my router here and go ahead and put that on the profile around the sides of this particular piece of wood, but also internal to that circle. It just has a nice look to it. It has a nice feel in the hand. And then I'm going to go ahead and sand it up, make sure that that piece of pine comes back to life. I'm staining it with a artificial stain, something that actually does not have natural tannins to it or natural oils or pigments to it. I like the look. I like the gun stock look to it. It's going to give a nice contrast to the Intarsia puzzle pieces once I put them on. And now we're basically ready. We're going to go ahead and box this thing up and then deliver it to him for Christmas. Well, that was an interesting build. Thank you for joining me. It didn't go quite the way that I had envisioned that it would go. The last time I made Intarsia was 6 years ago or so, or greater, and I apparently forgot everything that I did at that time, which worked well. Things that I learned, the only thing that I learned that's worth sharing is simply this. When you're doing Intarsia and you have your drawing that you're going to transfer onto the wood to cut it out of, there's several methods. One is to draw it on tracing paper and then to trace that onto the wood itself. And the other is to take the actual drawing that you have and spray some glue or put some sort of adhesive down and put that directly to the wood itself. I've seen another way, which is to trace onto contact paper and then using the adhesive with contact paper, putting that onto the wood. I used none of those. I took painter's tape. I hate painter's tape. And I took painter's tape and I taped the edges, the perimeters of my picture directly onto the wood, and then I started to use my scroll saw. And the moment that I got to the point where I was cut out, and the moment that I got to the point where I had to cut out, where I had to cut out the, oh, that's gross. The moment that I got to the point where I had to cut out the moment I got to the point where I had cut past the places that were taped to the wood, all of that paper picture was free, was flapping around. So I had to make smaller and smaller tape pieces, and it was just a complete catastrophe. I was using my fingers extremely close to the blade. All the scroll saw blades are not really all that dangerous, I don't think. It worked out in the end. Honestly, this is pretty embarrassing. And honestly, I'm embarrassed with it. That's it for me this week. Thank you for joining me for this build. Next week, I will begin to build a Morning Star. You know that spiked ball on a chain on a wooden handle that you see in the medieval and fantasy movies? I have a fairly replete arsenal of medieval weapons that I've made, but I've never made a Morning Star. In fact, I've never made a chain before. So there will be some new things that I'm going to be putting into practice. I look forward to sharing that with you then. Until then, be well.